Welcome to Burn Rate and Beyond. We are back at it. This is season two. We're kind of changing up the format a little bit. Today we've got with us two people who I love, two family members here. We got Lua, my daughter, and John, my father. And we're going to kind of just talk about some different stuff. The format will be just a little different because we got Lua kind of running the show. She's young, got lots of questions, and we're going to kind of let her take the lead with all of this. So without further ado, um, Lua, you want to go for it?
Yeah, okay, so I divided the questions into different blocks. So we'll first start off with the first set of questions that are kind of just about financial habits and questions that I think a lot of young people have. And then we'll move on to the next set of questions that are more about the family history of the business, how things started, and all of that. So, starting off, um, this first question Chad can answer. When you look back at your 20s, what's the biggest financial mistake you made or almost made?
Um, that's a pretty easy one. I would never tell anybody to do this. I had a job right out of college, and I was able to put away a bunch of money into a 401k. I think I put I think there was like a 3 or 4% match from my employer, and I was able to, I think I maxed it out for the first year or year and a half that I worked there, and yeah, so I was able to put a good bit of money in there. Then I quit that job and cashed out the 401k. Bad idea. It was it was no good because on top of paying taxes on it and not letting it accumulate until I was retirement age, I also paid a 10% penalty for that silly little act. So that I would have to say is probably the biggest one of the biggest, if not the biggest. I probably made a few, but anyway, that one sticks out of my mind.
I
I
didn't
didn't
have
ask you
that.
about that one, John. So
Yeah,
I just did it, just for the
yeah.
record.
Uh, I didn't have that problem because I had always had money in my pocket from the time I was like 13. So making money and spending money was fun. And
Yeah.
so when I was 20, let's see, when I was 20, I just recently got out of the Navy. I had a
Mhm.
bunch of money in my pocket. And so I decided I wanted a brand new car. And I bought me a brand new car for cash. And then I
Yeah.
had to go and find myself a job to live.
Priorities.
Yeah, priorities. So,
Do you remember what kind of car it was?
yeah, it was a Plymouth, little
Ah.
Plymouth, a little blue Plymouth. And then when I got up to San Francisco, I kept it for like 6 months or a year. And I traded in and bought myself the blue MG.
Oh, even more fun. Okay.
Yes.
Mhm.
So life was good.
Yeah.
So I'd say
Okay.
the biggest mistake is that I wasn't at 20. I was really looking at what my future was going to be. I was just having fun. I was living life.
You're living in the moment. You're living
Right.
in
Yep. Right.
Very
yeah.
zen.
And so kind of like based on what you just said, Grandpa John, what's one money lesson that people learn way too late in life? Because maybe they regret something that they did or
Well, here again, a lot depends on, I would say, personality,
Mhm.
because depending on your personality, uh, you don't realize what mistakes you've made until you get out of a certain lifestyle. I would say the one mistake people have is they really don't look forward to like 5 or 10 years into the future. Where do I want to be? What do I want to do? And usually that's your biggest problem is the money when you get to that point, when you want to make that decision or you want to make that move. So I would say that would be the biggest lesson most people learn way too late.
Not thinking of the future, just as you're saying, living in the now.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like that kind of goes hand in hand with what I was thinking. I was thinking like that there's like the kind of just living within your means. I feel like there's people who kind of always buy, or always spend money as if they're going to make the same amount of money they're making right now forever, and they don't necessarily think that, you know, maybe they'll lose their job, or maybe they won't, be able to do, something else will come up, unexpected expenses, and so then it's just really easy way to get into debt and yeah. So just that learning to live within your means is something that people learn. I feel like a lot of people seem to learn late.
Or the hard
So,
way.
I think that kind of ties into number three, though.
I don't know. Well, we'll see what that is.
Um, so I maybe yeah, Grandpa John can start answering this one. What's the most important financial habit that people learn in the long run?
It kind of ties in what your dad said, is living within a budget versus living on credit cards, for example.
Yeah.
People, their standard of living is based on how much credit they can get. And they learn that, typically what I've seen is they've learned that in college, because the credit card companies give you the credit card, but no interest, little payment. And it sets a mindset that this is free money.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, and
and
that
then
you
they'll
could,
start living beyond their means.
Right.
yeah, I feel like that you mentioned the word budget. I feel like that's a habit that not everybody is taught. Actually, next year, at Musselman High School, they're requiring juniors to take a financial acumen or financial, planning course, or it's actually a required high school learning now, which I think is great.
Yeah.
Because it's just the whole concept of like, okay, well, what happened at the end of the month? Let's add up all the numbers, and if you where did all the money go, and is that what you were expecting to happen or hoping to happen, right? So not just cash, but also credit cards and yeah. So yeah, I feel like like budgeting and kind of analyzing after the week or the month to see what happened are really really important habits, not just personally, but also for business, same thing.
Mm-hmm.
I also believe that what I've seen is the younger generations have a tendency to say, if it's not by phone, it exists. So I remember talking to someone and saying, "How much money do you have in the bank?" And they pull their phone up and say, "This is how much I have." I says, "Really? Do you have written checks? Do you have some automatic deposits?" I don't know.
Yeah.
And so they really don't realize that there are other things that affect your financial position, and therefore uh, it creates a problem down the road for them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Um, so Chad, what would be your tips on building wealth?
Wealth building. Yeah. So I feel like the concept of wealth building is the idea that it's it's I guess I feel like there's two parts to it. One, it's a slow game. You can't just expect to be a millionaire if you're starting from zero overnight.
Yeah.
Usually the best way to do that is to um what's that? Well, I don't know, set aside, a portion of all of the money that you earn into some sort of savings account so that it starts accumulating. And then once you have, that accumulation, you you can then do things with it. So I did this thing, actually with you guys back in the day, where there was like three jars. Like we had this thing where you guys got some money and we had three jars. So jar one was, money that you could spend a day. Jar two was just sort of like a midterm goal, like maybe you want to buy a toy or, a new phone or whatever it is. And then jar three is like the infinite, unbelievably long future that you can't even imagine. And if you put a little bit of money into that bucket or that jar consistently over time, it will turn into something that then you can actually do something with. You can buy a house, you can buy another investment, you can open a business and have capital to work with, you know, have money for retirement, all those things. So I'd say the biggest thing is just that habit of putting just a little bit away and just saying, I'm going to forget about that, and keeping it kind of out of sight, out of mind.
Yeah, saving can be hard.
Yes.
But
And
yeah.
that's a real problem. The things that what I tell individuals is, look, decide how much you're going to put into the other two pots, and then learn to live on what's left.
Yeah.
Okay. Because if you say, well, this is what I want to live on, and I'm not going to, I'm going to put the rest in the pots. Sometimes no money ends up in the pots.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you put it in the pot first, and then live on what's left.
Yeah, and it doesn't have to be a lot, just a little bit, because the game is like
Right.
slow and steady wins the race. So the other thing that I feel like, and this is just me, I'm kind of a Excel dork or just whatever, a numbers person, is that sometimes by keeping track, you kind of also feel that you're making progress. So like in the jars, like the jars back in the day was like coins. So you put the coins, as you could see the coins stacking up, and you'd be like, oh, it's getting fuller over time, right? And so that's just a really easy and visual way that like, you can understand what's happening, without having to, so those physical jars that we used back in the day are good in that sense because you can just kind of visually see what's happening. But if it's in a bank account or wherever it is, occasionally, keeping track, like, oh, last year was 5 and now it's 7. Okay, good. We're making progress. That's the most important thing. So,
Now, one of the things is that things have changed so much. I mean, when I was younger, uh, cash was really prevalent. And so what I used to do is every week I'd put X number of dollars in my wallet. And at the end of the week, whatever change was in my pocket, I'd throw it in a jar.
Yeah.
Okay. And so when I wanted something that was whatever it was, I could go to my jar, count out, see how much I had, and decide whether I could afford it or not.
Yeah.
So,
and you couldn't spend it because it's in your jar, not your pocket, right?
right.
That's true. Yeah. So how early should someone start investing, even if they feel like they don't make enough money yet? Maybe Chad can start on this one.
I
How
would say
early? I'll go for it.
Yeah.
I would say that for every dollar they earn, they ought to put a dime away. They did that consistently. At some point in time, they'll have enough money that they can start investing in some growth activity. But if you do that consistently, you'd be surprised how fast it will grow.
Yeah. I was just actually, this isn't a plug, but I was on listening to the radio yesterday, and there's an advertisement for Charles Schwab has teen accounts. So you can, so that it's a brokerage account that can be opened by a minor and managed by the parents, or co-managed by the parents, and the investment amounts, the minimums are very, very small because it's the idea is that with tens of dollars or hundreds of dollars you can start investing in um certain mutual funds or whatever it is. So I would say there's no too early. It's just a question of finding a platform that works with the amount of capital you have available. So I know in the UK, like or your cousins, they had an app even like 2 or 3 years ago when they were like 8 years old or something like that, and where they were able to direct a small amount of funds into a certain investment or other. I mean, I think the key is to find something that you're interested in and then trying to understand how to that you would just be paying attention anyway, and then try to find a way to leverage that into some sort of long-term investment strategy.
Yeah, because I feel like nowadays a lot of young people, they'll, I don't know, maybe not be very well informed, or they'll think it's like an just very easy way to make money. Especially with like Bitcoin and everything. I think people really went down like kind of a rabbit hole with that. And I mean, I personally didn't do it, so I can't, say like, oh, well, it turned out well or bad. But I think like some people just aren't very like informed about it and don't know how to do it properly. So,
Yeah, there's also a lot of how shall I say, fake news and
Hype. The hype.
yeah,
yeah,
yeah, and it's easy for someone that's not informed to believe it without doing any research.
yeah. Yes, I guess it's not about the quantity, maybe it's also about choosing right and doing it properly.
And don't look for a lot of gain. Look for more substantive companies that are going to be
Mhm.
there for a while.
Yeah.
Even if the growth is small, compounded over a lifetime, it's a lot of money.
Hmm. Okay. Um, so what's something about taxes that young adults completely overlook but could save them thousands over time?
Remember, there's only two things guaranteed: death and taxes. They'll always be there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Can't get away from either one. Um, I mean, mine is the Roth IRA. Like that's like, if you make a little bit of money, you can put money into a Roth IRA because in the retirement game, I guess with taxes, let me say this: there's a couple different strategies. Strategy one is you defer the taxes, and strategy two is you try to reduce the amount of tax you pay. So the Roth IRA generally is good for young individuals because generally when you're in your 20s, you're making less money than when you're in your 30s or 40s or 50s. So by paying the tax, by investing in a retirement fund when you're in your 20s and paying the tax and investing the money in a Roth IRA, um, is more advantageous because you're paying less tax and then it can grow tax free. The other advantage of the Roth IRA when you're young is time, right? If you invest in the S&P 500, I think on average your investment would double every like 10 years or something like that. And so the more decades that you're actually in the market with a particular investment, the bigger that it will grow. So just that I feel like that is it's a way to avoid paying a lot of taxes later and build wealth at the same time is my
Mm.
is my biggest
I have a
thing.
little bit different uh,
Okay.
phasing.
Okay.
I agree when you get out of college or while you're in college and you have employment, uh, go ahead and put money into a Roth. But at some point in time when you're like starting a family and you have two incomes and you in the higher tax brackets, go ahead and put them into an IRA. And then at some point when the kids get older, then you can start converting that IRA into a Roth.
Hmm.
Okay. Because it gives you the most cash in hand in the years between 2025 to 45.
Hmm.
Yeah, essentially, like the strategy can evolve over time as an individual's or situation changes, right? Is essentially
Right.
what you're saying there. Hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. And what financial decision in your 20s do you think had the biggest effect in your 30s and your 40s or 50s?
Getting married.
Chad?
What did you say? I didn't catch
Getting
that.
married.
Getting married. Yeah, having kids. Um, exactly. You were born on my right before I turned 30, right? So,
Right.
Yeah.
um, I would say buying real estate. I feel like I bought a couple of houses in my 20s, and that turned into significant wealth a few decades later. Significant, whatever. My investment grew significantly. Um, so that was a I checked out a good decision. But the
Yeah, no, it
yeah
can
the
be good or bad. We
yeah I don't know when I guess the other thing is like an example of yeah so yeah I would say that we were able to invest in a little bit of real estate a few decades ago that helped. Um, Bad, of course, we already went over that in the beginning,
yeah,
401ks and credit card debt and all that other things, right? I mean, the
I
other
think,
thing I guess is one more thing, just John, is just kind of what you were saying, is just working, working and saving, like that, like those are, you know, I had a gap year where I didn't really work, and I feel like that slowed down a bunch of things financially. And so it was fun. I'm not going to get even I'm not going to argue about that, but I feel like if it just from a financial lens, like that slowed down a bunch of growth or wealth building opportunities. All right,
yeah.
go ahead, John. I'm done now.
well, I think the biggest issues in your 20s that have the biggest ripple effect in your 30s and 40s is deciding what you want to do with the rest of your life.
Mm-hmm.
Because, you know, what happens is that you have a tendency to dabble in this and dabble in that, and dabble in something else, and never really settle down until you're in your 30s to come up with this is what I want to do the rest of my life. And you've wasted 10 years of your life doing that,
Like career wise, or
career wise.
okay.
Yeah. So, in my 20s, I found out I was good at accounting, but I dabbled in other things for several years before I really settled into this is what I wanted to do the rest of my life.
Mm-hmm.
And it slowed me down as far as growth was concerned and had a biggest effect in my 30s and 40s.
Okay, that makes
The
sense.
the funny
Mhm.
thing you use the word waste, like it's so funny because it's one of those things. There's that concept of living in the moment and being present, and and not just living like I heard this concept, I can't remember what it was. It was can't remember the actual name of it. It was something like it was a sickness, it was like tomorrow sickness or something like that. And it was a group of people who worked at the who were like interns, medical interns at Stanford, and they were working in the like the intensive care unit, and so they were surrounded by all these people who so all these young people were like super motivated, right? They're working super hard. They'd worked really hard to get into med school. They got through med school, worked really hard at that. Now they're doing like the intern thing where they're working 70 or 80 hours a week, whatever they have to do. And they're all like, oh, when I get to this, when I graduate from med school, when I, finish my intern, when I do this, when I do that, I'll be happy, right? And then like the huge dichotomy is that they're in the intensive care unit with a bunch of people who, have like had and they're 40 and they're like they've had a heart attack and they're like because they worked really hard and they're like, yeah, now I'm gonna die and and it's like, that whole like when I get to the next thing, I'll be happy. They're like, well, hold on. I've been doing that for like 3 or 4 decades and it didn't really work out. So
Yeah,
there's also that like that and a very interesting balance between that being present and living in the now and understanding what's going to happen in the future, which is kind of like the we were talking about the jars and putting a little money aside. It's like I feel like it's a really important lesson, um, just with just in life and career and everything, right? Where you got to have both, right? You got to be like, okay, we're living now, but we have to be thinking in long term, kind of like I guess maybe another way to say it more concretely is you got to have someplace you're going, right? If you're just dabbling, you're just kind of spinning your wheels. But if you're like, I'm going this way, then go. So
yeah.
you can always change course, but go.
But
So
pick something. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. That's good advice. And kind of like related with what I mentioned before about how a lot of people aren't very well informed about like financial habits and everything, like what you mentioned about Musselman um incorporating that new class. That sounds very interesting. Like I didn't have anything like that. Now I'm having accounting classes in college. But if you could teach like every 20-year-old one concept, like for example, budgeting or investing, like what would that be that you would think would be maybe the most useful or um
I would have to say it'd be a compounding thing. I think the first thing would be budgeting, and then uh, investing in taxes, and then insurance, because they all build on each one. Because
mhm.
if you're not doing any budgeting, you really don't know where you stand and where you're going. You won't have any money for interest, so you won't be doing any investing. You're just going to be paying taxes because you have to pay taxes. And then you're going to find yourself, well, do I want insurance, and why do I want insurance, and how much do I want to spend in insurance? Well, if you don't have any money, it doesn't make any difference.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that makes me think of a guy. I think the guy's name was John B. Something. I can't remember his last name. He was a guy, a real estate guy, and he said, "I like to think of real estate like a ice cream sundae. At the bottom you got the ice cream, which is good, and on top of that you got whipped cream, and on top of that you got sprinkles, and maybe on top of that you got a cherry, right? So, you his analogy was in real estate, and the ice cream is cash flow, and the appreciation is sorry, the tax savings is the whipped cream, the and the I can't remember what the third one was, but the appreciation is really the cherry on top over the long term. He's like, don't buy for tax savings, don't buy for appreciation, buy ice cream, buy cash flow, right? Because with cash flow, it gives you more options. And then if the other things happen, great. And so that's kind of the same concept. The budgeting will help you generate will help you keep cash in your pocket. And so that's the bait, like basically what Grandma John was saying. It's like that's the ice cream. If you
Mhm.
can keep cash and a little bit of cash just a little bit of time, then the other things will come. You will be able to do the other things. If you can't, if you don't have the cash, then
You
you're
can't really
kind of
do
stuck.
anything.
Yeah. So that budgeting one is key to being able to generate cash and generate options.
Yeah. So I have a last question, but I kind of feel like it's already been answered. So I'll ask it if you have anything else to add, but if not, we can skip over it. Are there any patterns or habits that you notice in young people that are mistakes?
I would say the biggest is that they don't understand, or they don't comprehend what is happening in their own family environment. That they have a tendency to uh, reject whatever their family's doing, or whatever attitudes they have, uh, to the point where they know more than their parents, and they don't learn from their parents' experiences.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like they think they know better or
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. My kids are smart until they get my age.
Oh, I used to be really smart. Watch out. Um, yeah, I would say that's a good one. That's a good one. That the people who've been around the block a few times definitely know a few things. Um, the other one, I guess, is just don't do the ostrich. Don't stick your head in the sand and like ignore and think everything's gonna be okay. Like the whole concept of paying attention, um, is is a good one. So
yeah, you can't just ignore the problems. They're not gonna go away by
Oh, yeah.
themselves.
Put it this way, is that a small problem today becomes catastrophe tomorrow.
yeah.